Hello, and welcome back to another soliloquy from Dungeons and Decisions. Last time we left off in Wizard's Choice, escaping from a ruined fortress with a revived demon god right on our heels. Our adventurers, Reginald, Inixion, and Sibba, all fled into the forest in Goblin territory, are currently camping in the dark, making their way, presumably, back toward Ring City. I think we were just heading down to bed, and so that's where we're going to be picking back up. I don't have anything else to add. Pretty much explained that we're going to be sticking to this one for a little while, just because I want to get toward part 6 and get back to that crossover with Wizard's Choice and Demon's Choice. So, that being said, let's hop right back into it. We'll be picking back up right at a checkpoint. Alright. You wait until Reginald begins snoring before you pull your spellbook out of your backpack. Reginald hates it when you study magic while you are supposed to be keeping watch. But you need something to distract you from the cold. With flint and tinder, you light a single candle to read by. The arcane text that you have read 1,000 times over, but differently each pass through, provides a sort of familiar comfort, a comfort you are grateful for in this dark forest. Soon, you are lost in study. After some time, you can never keep track of time when immersed in magical lore. You exclaim, "Yes!" "Danger?" Reginald rolls over, his eyes slits. He is only half awake. "I understand invisibility. I can turn invisible, at last! Oh, this spell has eluded me for so long. At least, I think I understand," you say, as you point down at the arcane symbols in your book. "Go to sleep," Reginald slurs, and then his head falls back to the ground. "This is Goblin country, and I am on watch. I dare not sleep," you say. But Reginald does not hear you. He is snoring again. It turns out that you are not so vigilant after all. At some point, as you gaze at the candle flame, you fall asleep. "Awaken! Someone is near," Reginald whispers as he shakes you. You sit up groggily. It is still dark. At first, all you hear is an owl hooting. Then, sure enough, voices trickle in through the trees. Not goblins. Those are human voices, you think. "They approach upon the trail," Sibba says, huddling in her blanket. "To the trail, then, but keep quiet," says Reginald. "And no lantern," you whisper. "We go slow. Moonlight will have to be enough." "Why? Why not stay still and let them pass?" asks Sibba. "Because we are adventurers," you whisper fiercely as you gather your backpack. Refusing to be left by herself, Sibba follows as you creep up to the edge of the trail. Thank the gods she is not sniffling or otherwise making a racket. You have just taken up your position in the brush when you see the first of a column of priests of Nerul, visible in the light of their torches in the moonlight. Several of them are speaking casually, loudly even, as though they, and not the goblins, own this part of the woods. As they pass by, you see in the middle of the column a large stretcher made of thick wooden branches and rough spun fabric. It's carried by 8 priests. Upon the stretcher is a pure white horse whose legs are bound with rope. Not a horse, but a unicorn. You have not seen one before, but the long horn is a dead giveaway. Walking in front of the stretcher is a tall man and a woman. The man holds a torch, and in this lantern light you can clearly make out the woman's features. You know the young woman, or, to be precise, you know of her. She is the beautiful Lady Igraine, daughter of Lord Igraine. Her father holds a keep and estate some distance from town, and her family comes to Ring City for annual tournaments. More than once you have gazed wistfully at her from the cheap seats far in the corner of the jousting arena. Needless to say, it's a bit disappointing to see that she appears to be a Nerulian priestess. And the man with her? You wonder. After a moment, you recognize him as her father, Lord Igraine. To think a man of such an illustrious line would get mixed up with this evil lot. Anyway, back to Lady Igraine. Her jet black hair is pulled back to reveal a most shapely, long neck. Her flawless skin glows in the torchlight. The golden, unholy symbol of Nerul hanging over her bosom contrasts nicely with her large brown eyes. "We cannot go back there. Not yet," Lord Igraine is saying. "Why would we go back ever? That ruin offers no decent bath," Lady Igraine replies. "There is some unfinished business. However, it can wait," Lord Igraine says as he absently pats the pocket of his immense fur-lined overcoat. "The old one will move on from Castle Inverness to seek the living. Let us hope he does not exact revenge upon us." After the column has passed out of earshot, Reginald sighs. "A unicorn, was it not? Where did they find such a creature?" "And what do they plan to do with it?" you ask. "I wager they do not plan to simply feed her apples and comb her mane," Reginald replies. "Her? It is a lady unicorn?" you ask. "Oh, I did not look in that, decisive region," Reginald blushes. "Such craven and pathetic simpletons," Sybil seethes as she glares after the column of priests disappearing around a bend. "I propose we tie each of them down and cut off one finger at a time. We will bind their wounds to ensure they will not lose too much blood and fall unconscious. Then we peel their eyelids up and gouge out each eyeball one by one as the others watch, knowing that it shall soon be the last thing they see. What say you?" She looks at Reginald with hard eyes. "Say to what?" asks Reginald. He points to you. "Neither of us are for torture." "Are you not for justice?" she seethes, her hands clenching into fists. She spins, turning to face you, her rage obvious. Now that we properly know how Sybil looks, her angry would look pretty scary. Now, lady. Now, my lady, I know this has been an upsetting night, starts Reginald. Sibyl turns her angry gaze back to Reginald and appears ready to strike him. You're not sure what has gotten into her, but you can't allow this to escalate. The enemy is not that far away, and if she shouts, there could be trouble. You could attempt to reason with Sibyl, or you could lie and tell her that you will go ahead with the torture in order to placate her for now. What do you say? I suppose that would be a reasonable tactic to just tell her, fine, we'll do it. Because it seems like when you tell people to calm down in a situation where they need to stay calm and quiet, they just get louder because humans naturally rebel against being told what to do. So I don't want to lie though and make it worse. We're trying to just get her back home, and we can't do that if she doesn't trust us. And well, this is a horrible thing to lie and say we'll do. It's better to stand by our decision not to do it and then just let her vent. But she can't vent loudly because the people are still in the area. Capturing and torturing is not practical against so many. Very well, we could do all that, even the business with the eyeballs. It's the way it was said. Like, sure, yeah, we can do all that. Even the business with the eyeballs. But no, I think we're going to go with the first one. Because I don't feel... I don't feel like it'll get us all the way to town banking on that lie. Because if we say we're going to do it, then she's going to want a detour to follow them. And no, like she'll jump out. She could do it anyway. She could just be so impulsive as to just run after them, even though we just rescued her from them. But look, I got to choose one course or another. If I were in the story, I wouldn't have this much time to debate it. And I would probably just go with trying to make her understand why we need her to calm down. Capturing and torturing is not practical against so many. Morale increases by 1. Against so many, capturing and torturing is not practical, you say. I'm not sure what sort of merchant family you are in, but all this cutting and gouging is wrong, says Reginald, folding his arms over his chest. Sibyl's scowl deepens at Reginald. And what these villains did to my father? Was that not wrong? We would be happy to slay them in service of freeing the unicorn, you offer. Right, proclaims Reginald, holding up his index finger. Do we smite evil? Reginald shrugs and continues. Sure, we do. And sometimes not in self-defense. However, when we kill, we do it expeditiously and with a minimum of suffering. Well, except for him. He nods at you. This one tends to burn them. Questionable if you ask me, but that's a wizard for you. They die quicker than you think, you say, perhaps a bit more defensively than you intended. The gods care not for your practicality or your expeditiousness, she seethes. They demand vengeance. Oh, Reginald says. Well, that depends on the god you're speaking of. This only seems to enrage Sibyl more. You put your hand up near her trembling shoulder, but abstain from touching her for fear of her lashing out. Siba, you begin, trying to keep your voice low and calm. This business with the eyeballs, it is just what you're describing, you stammer, trying to gather your thoughts. Well, it tends to take a long time, and then there's the screaming, which would undoubtedly attract attention. And, says Reginald, as I have already said, we simply are not the torturing sort. We're men, not drow. Siba grits her teeth at Reginald. Quickly, you add, sending these villains straight to the abyss is vengeance enough. Siba regards you coldly for a moment, but then unclenches her fist and takes a deep breath and looks down the trail in the direction the priest had gone. With Siba looking away, you and Reginald exchange perplexed looks, as if to say, what has gotten into her? Reginald then leans over and whispers in your ear, young maidens love unicorns. Siba regards the two of you with hard eyes. Very well, let them die swiftly. I say then that we should attack them now and make them pay, at least somewhat, for their transgressions. There are too many, Reginald protests, even with the element of surprise. Siba interrupts. First you whine about torture, and now you do not wish to fight? I thought you said you were adventurers. Adventurers, not idiots, Reginald replies, his pride clearly hurt. There are only 3 of us, and they are slowed by their burden. We could cut through the woods and get ahead of them. We shall ambush them as they come by. Or we could follow them from a distance and learn more about our quarry. Perhaps strike at a more opportune time, Reginald says. You nod to your comrade. Reginald is seldom wrong when it comes to combat tactics. And perhaps they will notice us following them. Or perhaps they are journeying to some vile fortification that we cannot hope to storm. I say we ambush them now while they're in the open, Siba says. I say again that we are terribly outnumbered, says Reginald. Even with full surprise, we cannot hope to triumph against so many. What do you say? Well, we don't have to expose ourselves to follow them. We can listen to them, because they're talking freely. They don't recognize that they're being watched, and they seem to have the arrogance to not care if a goblin stumble upon them. So we can follow them and listen to what they have to say. We'll know if they're going to another location. I mean, we'd see another location before they get to it. So that's not really an issue. And we can always ambush again later if we want. But yeah, for now, let's listen out. Maybe we'll get the opportunity to split the group up. For now, let's just follow and listen to these cultists. Why is our once demure, frightened merchant's daughter suddenly wishing to play the role of a bloodthirsty battle tactician, you wonder? Dear Siba, we will mete out justice to these villains for the death of your father, among other countless evil deeds, in due time. You are not trained in the art of war as Reginald and I are. Even if we set a successful ambush, their numbers are simply too great for 2 men. There are 3 of us, Siba says fiercely as she thrusts out her palm. A blade for me? Certainly adventurers have more weapons than they need. Reginald shrugs, unbuckles a dagger belt, and hands it to her. Even if they scurry off to a fortification of some kind, we will take them. I have the trust of the captain of the guards of Ring City. He will not suffer evil so close, says Reginald. The three of you set off after the priest while keeping a good distance away, out of sight most of the time. Luckily, their party is so noisy that tracking them is trivial. After a half hour or so, your quarry leaves the trail and hikes over a field. You now have to follow a bit closer in order to not lose them. Soon they stop on a hill with a large slab of granite at the top. They set the unicorn down on the slab and surround it. You stop in the foliage of the tree line beside the field and watch. The sky is beginning to lighten with the coming sun. I like that picture. They begin chanting. The chant is in Inferno, but you can only make out a few words from here. They are chanting a prayer, you think. Something about forgiveness. I am no Nerulean priest, but I do not think this bodes well for the unicorn, says Reginald. They mean to sacrifice him, Siva says. The unicorn is a him? Reginald asks. Yes, I observed his, when they carried him by our hiding spot, Siba responds. Irrelevant, you say in exasperation. Our enemies stand in the open and on high ground. We cannot approach unnoticed. Allow me to lure them to you, to the forest edge. I shall play the part of the frightened, lost girl. They will be overjoyed to recapture what they lost. You can then attack from your hiding places, says Siva. No, my lady, they may harm you, says Reginald. I will disembowel them, she says, brandishing the dagger Reginald lent her. I understand your anger for what they did to your father, but do not die a fool, says Reginald. A fool, am I? Siba asks. Her face is such a visage of malice that you and Reginald both take a step back. Reginald stammers. Reginald stutters. Perhaps stealth would serve us better, you interject. I might turn invisible, creep into their midst, and cut the unicorn free. My friend, surely your powers are best spent spewing forth gouts of deadly fire, not sneaking about like a rat. Fire and steel, simple and effective, says Reginald. What do you do? Use fire and steel, mana 6. Turn invisible, cost 4 mana, or use Siba as bait. Siba is such a wild card right now. I don't know if I trust any plan that involves her. I don't understand why she changed so much. I guess fear, while in the ruins, suppressed a lot of her emotions. She didn't really get to think about what had happened with her father. It's just crazy that she got a a little sleep, and now she feels like she can just murder armies. I would say turning invisible because that focuses on the unicorn. And once we free the unicorn, I think the unicorn would be helpful because then we won't just be three of us, we'd be four. I'm not saying that we're going to like stick with the unicorn, that it'll join our party, but I do think it would at least help fight the cultists. So I think, and it's like using fire and steel is basically just spitting in the face of everything we just argued that we can't take these guys head on, because that's just Reginald arguing to take them head on. I'm going to say we turn invisible, sneak in, and free the unicorn. Okay, mana decreases by 4, but morale increases by 1. So maybe we were successful. Quickly, you cast your spell and creep up the hill. The evil priests are bunched together closely in a circle around the slab of granite, so you have to take care. It is critical that you do not touch anyone because that would break your invisibility illusion. Your spellbook is very explicit about this point. Pass not even like a breeze, for even the wind is felt by man. Become nothing, and nothing will know you. You recall the spell instructions saying, one priest shifts to one side, and you have enough room to pass without so much as brushing their long sleeves. Although you have avoided touching anyone, you cannot help making some measure of noise from your footfalls. Fortunately, their chanting deafens them to your passage. Now that you have passed into their inner circle, you can make out their words in the infernal language. We praise you, Ancient One. You are free, servants, slaves to your will. We ask not for mercy, we ask only to serve. Over and over, they repeat this. One of the hooded men looks familiar. Belfour, the farmer. He comes into Ring City to sell his apples every harvest. You know him because he always gets drunk and makes trouble. The guards have learned to keep an eye on him when he has coin in his pocket. You would never have imagined he was mixed up with dark powers, though. A few others look familiar too. Although you can't place them, they must be locals of Ring City. You are now near the unicorn, and you have your dagger out. You have a couple of options. You could simply cut the unicorn free and start the fight, or you could try to scare the priests first. What do you do? I'm just going to cut the unicorn loose. I don't think there's a need to scare them. They're going to be plenty scared enough when the unicorn suddenly starts attacking. Besides, I feel like it's better to just let them keep chanting, because that'll give the unicorn even more surprise time to like gouge one of them while we start fighting directly. Yeah, just wanted to think about it clearly. Like, I don't see anything Illusion can help us with. We're just going to cut the unicorn loose. Oh, nice. Oh, wait. Life decreases by 3? So I get attacked. Well, we are about to start the fight. And I'm right there in the inner circle. So I guess that makes sense. And morale increases by 4. So whatever we did probably had some really good consequences. Okay. Why waste my power on illusions when I have a real unicorn to set loose, you think? You hope the unicorn is fiercer than he looks. Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking. Like, unicorn is just about to start mashing people anyway. The unicorn is still tied to the stretcher, and his hooves are tied together. He is struggling to free himself, so cutting his hooves free will be a little tricky. Nevertheless, you decide to cut the hooves free first, since the stretcher ropes are at least keeping the unicorn somewhat stationary. After that, you plan to cut the ropes, binding him down. The first pair of hooves goes smoothly. Your sharp dagger slices through the rope without touching the hooves. Unfortunately, the unicorn's sudden relative freedom excites him into a renewed frenzy. You get the other hooves free, but your blade and hand touch the creature's leg in the process. The chanting stops, and there are gasps from the crowd around you. I'm visible, you realize. One priest is standing nearby with an unsheathed dagger, a sacrificial dagger, you presume. He lunges at you. The two of you stab each other at the same time. He stabs you in the stomach, and you stab him in the throat. As the priest falls to the ground, choking on his own blood, you slash at the remaining bonds holding the unicorn down. The creature looks at you and says, "Thank you, good sir." Then he is free, and he leaps up. "You will pay for your iniquities," he announces to the others. Did not expect the unicorn to talk. Okay. Life decreases by one again? Wasn't the 3 enough? I just got stabbed in the stomach. Oh my gosh. You nearly shout in surprise. You've never seen a horse talk. His horsey lips do not move about like a human's. Rather, his mouth simply opens and the words spill out. One of the priests glares at you and begins chanting a spell. Fortunately, the unicorn gores him before he finishes. You feel a sharp pain in your shoulder. Just behind you is a Nerulian priest, his face contorted into a murderous sneer. He pulls his dagger back for another strike. The unicorn kicks his hind legs into your attacker's ribs, sending him through the air. The unicorns are rather useful, you think. "Kill the beast!" shouts Lord Igraine from amidst the other priests. Spells are cast, and the air fills with hissing, dark bolts of energy. You duck behind the stone as one sizzles above you. Peeking over the stone, you see several dark bolts strike the unicorn, and it whinnies in pain. Most of the remaining priests are so focused on the unicorn that they don't even notice Reginald joining the rear of their fray, swinging his sword with a grim smile on his face. Somehow, they are oblivious to the butchery behind them. "In Neural's name, die!" The Lady Igraine shouts as she summons a circle of fire between her raised palms. The unicorn rears its eyes wide. "No!" you shout as Lady Igraine sends forth a crackling ray into the side of the unicorn's head. The magnificent horse crashes to the ground. "Behind! Behind!" someone shouts. Now the priests turn their attention to Reginald. He cannot stand against so many. You charge, dagger in hand, shouting like a madman. With you striking from one side and Reginald on the other, the remnants of the priests scatter. In a flurry of stabs, You cut down a final one. In a flurry of stabs, you cut down a final one before he reaches the woods. A shadow falls across your path and you whirl about. In tall grass surrounded by flowers is Siba. Her rage Her ragged dress is blotched with blood, and the dagger Reginald lent her drips with the gore of a fresh kill. You leap back, startled. A manic smile forms on her face. "Revenge! Revenge for my captivity!" she exclaims. She then runs off, presumably to hunt down more fleeing priests. You are considering joining her when you catch a glimpse of Lady Igraine's long, beautiful hair disappearing into the forest below. You rush into the woods to investigate. Sitting propped against a fallen log, only a few meters away, is Lord Igraine. His glassy, lifeless eyes stare down at his entrails spilling out upon his lap. There are symbols drawn in blood on large stones nearby. Kneeling beside him is the Lady Igraine. She is searching his pockets. "Where is it?" she shouts at her father and then slaps his face. "Where's what?" you ask as you take a step closer. She looks up at you with surprise and then she smiles. "God be praised, you saved me from my cursed father and his minions," she exclaims. "Saved you from them? You are a priestess of death, are you not?" you ask. You have fantasized about approaching Lady Igraine more times than you can count, but you never expected your first words would be these. No. I was but a slave to my father," she says, her face contorted in rage. She then smiles down at the mangled corpse next to her. "Now he is gone, and I am free. But we must not dally here. Unrule, a monster from another world, stalks nearby." She points at one of the blood symbols scrawled on a nearby rock. The symbol is in Infernal. You look back to see Reginald chasing and hacking priests in the grassy field beyond. "Perhaps with the help of good people, I may find again the light of this world." Lady Igraine extends a hand out to you and says, "Quickly, gather your friends and follow me." You have lost your mind. Hell no. What? We heard the conversation. You are not a slave to. Okay, it's not saying that that's entirely impossible, but we all heard that conversation when we were following you earlier. You. No, you and your father were definitely working together. What do? Turn to gather your friends, demand her surrender, or attack her, or charm her. I don't trust being able to charm her. I know it's possible to charm humans, but I feel like I would save my charm spell for if I encounter monsters because the dumb ones are more likely to fall susceptible, and I don't want to waste the mana. So I'm going to demand her surrender. Life decreases 2, morale increases 1. Yeah, that makes sense. I figured that would happen. "My lady, although your beauty makes my heart ache, I must demand your surrender," I will take you to Ring City, where your innocence can be proven. You unsling your backpack to fetch your rope to bind her. Lady Igraine's smile washes away. By Nerule's hand, die! She shouts. A dark ray of hissing energy shoots from her fingertips. You shield yourself with your backpack, but the ray penetrates through, striking your arm. You feel cold. Use dark magic on me? She is evil, you think. You throw your backpack aside and rush at her with your dagger. Her long throat is an easy target for your blade, and you slash it open with one stroke. Wow. What a grisly and sad ending for the two of us, you think, looking down at Lady Igraine. Of course, there had never been a two of you, but your dreams were real enough. Sighing, you wonder, she had been looking for something of her father's. What was it? Just then, Reginald runs up to you, breathing hard. The priests mean to regroup. I hear them calling for one another in the wood. We best move on. He looks down at Lady Igraine. Is that? Yes, it is she, you reply. We may need a drink tonight, Reginald says. You nod and then point to Siba, who is now running around the grassy hill, crying and tripping as though in a panic. Aye, Reginald shakes his head. Only moments ago she was dashing about this field, wielding that dagger of mine like a bloodthirsty assassin. Now who is she? Is this the way of women? You shrug and jog out onto the grass. As you take Siba by the wrist and try to calm her, Reginald announces that he will search just a few bodies before fleeing. No use in letting the vultures swallow our treasure, he says cheerfully. It is not safe to stay out in the open. We must not dally, you warn your friend, ignoring Siba's attempts to pull away from your grasp. Just then, the unicorn stands up. His legs are shaking, and his eyes are bulging. You thought he was dead. No, not this, the creature bellows. He pauses for a moment and then screams triumphantly, This wood is mine! Upon uttering this pronouncement, the unicorn gallops towards the granite slab. What the heck? The unicorn gallops towards the granite slab and proceeds to bash his own head into it. Blood spatters the white rock as the creature batters his skull over and over. He suddenly stops and looks up. His horn has been ripped completely out of his head. He rolls on the ground, smearing blood onto his mane and tail. Gods, why? No, Reginald stammers. Siba commences screaming with renewed vigor. After a few seconds of frenetic rolling, gets up and bares his teeth like a wolf. He then charges down the hill toward you. All three of you shout as you run with abandon. At one point, you turn back and see that the unicorn is drawing near. Oh my God. That's horrifying. God have mercy, comes Reginald's voice beside you. Suddenly, the unicorn snaps his head up and he falls to the ground, a thud, sending dust and rocks flying. You turn and focus on running, keeping up with the others. When you reach the woods, you look back to see the unicorn thrashing on the grass, screeching in an unearthly tone. Evil magic, Reginald says. You stare in horror and realize that his magic. You stare in horror and realize that this magic is beyond your understanding. Motioning for the others to follow you, you say, "We have pressed good fortune long enough. Let us return to Ring City and the company of good people." Yes, let's do that. The three of you set off toward Ring City, your beloved home. You and Reginald are grateful to have some company for the lengthy walk. The two of you have long since exhausted your trove of stories and can nearly predict what each other will say. Ziba, on the other hand, is full of stories of faraway places, creatures, and magic you've never heard of before. A merchant's daughter must really get around. As it turns out, Ziba's family had recently moved to Ring City, and her brother Jordan tends the candle shop there. Nevertheless, she bombards you with questions about the city. She seems to want to know everything from who's who in the noble families down to the local gossip. The time passes quickly. By nightfall, the tall gates of the city rise above you. The guards, typically a suspicious lot, usher the three of you in without hesitation. They have known you and Reginald for years. Reginald was once even a member of the guard. Once inside, you immediately head to your loft. There, you rest and apply healing ointments to your wounds. You hide the majority of your loot under your floorboards. By the following evening, you are refreshed and feel stronger and more powerful than ever. You toss a handful of gold coins into your money pouch and meet up with Ziba and Reginald at the Leering Virgin Inn for some much-deserved celebration. You toss a handful of gold coins into your money pouch and meet up with Ziba and Reginald at the Leering Virgin Inn for some much-deserved celebration. The three of you feast and drink and tell stories, exaggerated of course, to the inn regulars and otherwise thoroughly enjoy yourselves. Although at one point you ask Ziba to slow down her drinking, or at least to not swill from 2 drinks at once. She gives you hard eyes only for a moment before ignoring your comment and resuming her double-fisted binge. You suppose you cannot blame her, given her recent loss. She gives you hard eyes only for a moment before ignoring your comment and resuming her double-fisted binge. You suppose you cannot blame her, given her recent loss. And that's Ziba and Reginald, I suppose. As the night grows late, your party becomes more somber. You pull the human skin-bound book that you lifted from the sacrificial altar in Inverness Castle out of your backpack and open to the first page. There is no justice. There is no law. There is only power, you read. Sounds just like what a zombie-raising no-good Gorgon's arse would write, Reginald says with slurred speech. The three of you are alone at a table in a corner of the inn, as all the other patrons have grown bored of your boasting and tall tales and have gone to bed. You page through the book. What's this? you exclaim. This speaks of the Baroness Irulin, lying with Sir Roger of Chesterford. Evil gossip no more, Sibyl says, and then takes a swig of wine. Well, the account seems rather detailed, you read further. And, Guildmaster Franz Percales has been skimming gold from the mint, melting the coins down and recasting them with more copper. Ha ha! I thought the coins from the money changer were light. Reginald begins rummaging in his pockets. What is that? A book of dirty secrets? Sibyl asks, pointing at the book accusingly. I rather think it is. Why, this silly little book might be worth more than the rest of our loot put together, you say. And you think the Lady Igraine might have been looking for that book? Says Reginald. He casts his eyes down to the table. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to bring her to mind. You put up your hand to reassure your friend. It is well that I learned to not judge a woman by her face, you say, doing your best to give a convincing shrug. I had heard House Igraine had fallen on hard times. Desperation leads to an evil path, does it not? Reginald nods vigorously, sloshing his drink. The glassy-eyed expressions on your friends' faces is the last thing you see before you black out. When you regain awareness, you are standing over a bed, shouting, No, Reginald, you can't die! Please! You are pushing down on Reginald's neck, attempting to stem the flow of blood. It is no use. He is deathly still on the blood-soaked bed, and there is no pulse. Bloody runes, some of them in inferno, are drawn around his head and upon the blanket over him. Runes for some sort of spell used to harvest power from a soul. Gods, no! You shout and run out of the room. You are now in what you recognize as a hallway of the Leering Virgin Inn. You shout for help and look back at him helplessly. There are footsteps from behind, and you turn to see a city guard and an old man approaching. Seize that one, the old man croaks as he points at you. He is the murderer. To be continued. Wow, what? We blacked out, and we came to see we had murdered our best friend, Reginald. I mean, I don't think we did it, but we're being set up. Or Inixion is being set up. Reginald is... Oh, man. Yeah, that sucks. I didn't remember that. Yeah, we have a little more reading. To be continued, though. That's the end of part 1. Dear reader, here is a map of the area of your recent adventure. Don't expect much accuracy. Medieval cartographers did not sweat the details. Also, you can see a more complete map of Ring City and the surrounding area at any time by selecting Maps from the main menu. Really? Okay, I don't think I was aware of that. So, this is the northern edge of Ring City, and they're just showing us the area over which we had our adventure through the night. Um, that clearing up at the far north is where the ruins were, and the whole area is goblin territory. Um, and then these clearings through the woods is where we traveled with the cultists. One of those being where they tried to take out the unicorn, and eventually that led to out of the forest into this open path leading to the city. Interesting. Like they said, no details. There's just an idea, a rough idea of where things were. Okay. There's a great deal more adventure ahead, but first, go see the stats on your first chapter. Show stats for this volume. Completed Wizard's Choice 1. Survive to the end of Wizard's Choice 1. Okay. Highest rank for Wizard's Choice 1. Got the highest rank possible for Wizard's Choice 1. That is a cool image of the mage there. I like that. Nixion. Crushed it. Beat the score for highest rank by a large margin. You want to know what I did today? Funny enough, I crushed it. I crushed it all day today. And then I crushed it some more. And then it asked me what I was doing, and I told it that I was crushing it. Schmidt from New Girl? Is this a quote from the TV show? The New Girl? Because wasn't that a character on that show, Schmidt? I only watched maybe the first 4 episodes of that show, so I don't really remember, but I'm pretty sure that was a character from that show. That's crazy that if this is an actual quote from that show. Oh, I like that picture too. That's cute. Okay. Oh, wow. We're just getting pop-ups left and right. Nice work. You have achieved 34% of the points possible in the Wizard's Choice series. That seems like a lot. 34%? And we're in the first chapter. And there's 6 total. They didn't really distribute those points all that thoroughly, did they? Feedback so far, signs of life have been detected by this software. 81.34% probability you are not doing this by accident. No, I'm intentionally reading through this story. Loaded with coin, Slayer of Evil. The table below shows where you rank. Well played. In only a few hours, tales of your deeds have spread throughout Ring City. Your total score is 1310, earning you the reputation of Loaded with Coin, Slayer of Evil. You know, what's disappointing is that moving into the next chapter, I wonder if we're not going to keep all the gold that we accumulated. We might not even need it, but actually, no. We aren't going to keep that gold because we're getting arrested. How how nice. How fortuitous. Well, I don't know where this is going from here. I don't know if Siba has something to do with what happened. Did she, is that related to why she suddenly became so violent? Um, was she also betrayed? I don't know. We know for sure that Reginald is dead, but it was just us two there apparently. And then we were, yeah, and then we were set upon by the guard and a witness who claims that we killed Reginald. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens next. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens next. I'm not going to take too much time to get into the next chapter because I like the momentum that we have here. And so uh, I really hope that you come back to see what happens next. If you would have wanted me to make other choices along the way, let me know down below what you're thinking of the story, what you're thinking of the choices. If there are any ideas for maybe different ways I might present this story. I know it's not really feasible for me to allow like viewers to pick, because I thought that would be pretty cool if I could do that maybe in the future. But for now, if you do have any ideas about maybe I could pick a tone that I can proceed through the story with, um, like if I should proceed more cowardly or more boldly, uh, take certain risks, or be more money hungry. Like if there's like a certain type of stance that maybe people could vote on, just throw ideas at me on how I could maybe be more interactive. I would welcome that. I would think that'd be really cool because that's the point of these stories, is to be interactive and make your own your own journey. But as for now, as it is, I'm still enjoying going through this again, and I hope you all are enjoying uh, listening to me read with you. And whatever you may be doing, whether you're actually reading along or you're busying your hands and listening to me in the background, I do still hope that you're enjoying the story, getting invested, and looking forward to seeing what happens next. And with that, until next time, sleep well.